So here we are on another Friday morning. Where does the time go to, Pat? Where does the time go to? It just zips from one Friday to another. But I think the same thing could be applied to beautiful weather. And about a week's time, we'll be looking back and saying, oh, wasn't it great summer we had there during June?
I think Jude, that's happened in the past. There have been occasions we got about 3 weeks, and sometime maybe late May and early June, and that's it for the summer, and then it just starts raining. Jude, I've seen that. There's been many occasions. Now, the only thing, Jude, I remember the summers, I think it was 75, 76, and 77.
Yes, I remember
and
that.
There was a young fella, they were the most
76.
glorious summers of all time.
That was the summer that
one day after another.
Prince, remember that? I remember there was concern about water conservation in England. And I remember Prince Charles urged people to put a brick into the cistern in their toilet. So that it wouldn't,
as if he would,
less water.
As if he would know how to do that, yeah.
Well, you could probably handle that, but the squeezing of the toothpaste, now that was tricky. That was a tricky number for him. Okay, enough royal bashing. Let's bash somebody else for a while. The first enemy you have here, Pat, is the leader of Finucane. And you're asking this question, which perplexes me. You say, is Micheål Martin Sinn Féin's best friend? Surely he's their deadliest enemy, no?
I was watching on, I think it was Tuesday night, when he was on about this John Finucane sort of controversy. I was listening to him. Came to the absolute conclusion. Every time Micheål Martin opens his mouth, Sinn Féin go up in the polls. Micheål Martin basically sings, as I'm just going to say it, from the same hymn sheet almost on every occasion as the DUP. He sounds like a unionist to most nationalists. He has attitude. He's basically saying, Sinn Féin, John Finucane shouldn't be involved in this, and the whole issue of legacy and all the rest of it. He's so milk and water when it comes to what unionism has done, their role here for a century and all the rest. But he is out front and centre when it's come to attacking Sinn Féin. And I think the Brexit and the DUP's attitude in recent years has changed. The groundswell of opinion, the grassroots opinion, it's seismic. People have changed totally. And Micheål Martin, I think, seriously needs to get people like Ray Bassett and Jim Sharkey and guys like that who knew what was happening in the north. They were on the ground, Dublin's representatives on earth, if you know what I mean. This government now seems totally out of touch what's happening here. Totally, completely and utterly. And I think Micheål Martin is leading from the front in that.
You don't think two things, Pat? One, that there might be an audience for what the line that he's taking in the South. And secondly, maybe he sincerely believes it.
Yeah, okay. Point one, Jude, if you're, and I know you're only doing a sort of a devil's advocate here, but the number of people in the South now voting Sinn Féin suggests it's a declining audience he's speaking to. Secondly, he's been reared in Cork. I think is actually showing up here. It's 300 miles roughly down south from Donegal to Cork, and the distance clearly has worked against Micheål's understanding of what's happening up here.
But the Cork people are quite a Republican sort of tradition. I mean, they tend to, if you remember the War of Independence or the Tan War, whatever you want to call it, the Cork was one of the epicenter maybe of the struggle against the British.
The rebel county and all that. Jude, that day's long. It's more like these. What is they call it? The merchant princes, isn't that what
Barry's right,
tea and all those guys? Yes. They all went Fine Gael afterwards.
Well, maybe so. This is sort of continuing on the same line. Did you see Nolan during the week?
No, but I caught a wee bit of it.
Well, he repeated it again, the same thing essentially on radio the next morning. But he was making quite a big thing of John Finucane going to South Armagh to commemorate IRA volunteers who had been killed in the course of the conflict. He was very, very, I mean, he really wound up the emotion in it and gave a picture of, so-and-so, this happened to them, and so-and-so how this happened. What do you think about that? Is that fair enough? Is it not right to remember people and the terrible things that were done to some people?
Yeah, but Jude, hold on. Let's get this on the record. I am not an IRA supporter. But I think there's a hell of a lot of hypocrisy coming from a lot of unions. I really genuinely do. Right, Jude, let's get this clear. In the first 3 or 4 weeks of the Troubles, several people have pointed out the RUC shot dead 6 Catholics. That's fact. You can check it out. Right. The British Army shot dead 14 people in Derry on Bloody Sunday. And Ballymurphy was the same. There was people killed at Finucane. There was a conflict here. And it seems to be that Micheål Martin and some of the people like Nolan seems to suggest that it's okay to commemorate the RUC and the UDR, but it's not all right to commemorate those who died on the nationalist side, the IRA. Now, Jude, I am not an IRA supporter, but I think there's look at as well how many people in the nationalist community, how they looked on the UDR and how they looked at them basically as thugs in uniform, a Protestant militia for our Protestant people who were involved in murders, attempted murders, and serious assaults. But it's all right to sort of commemorate them. Now, Jude, and we've come out of this sort of civil war situation because that's the only way you can describe it. And as it's all, I think it's a wee bit hypocritical. It's all right to commemorate those who wore the uniform because they were on our side, but not the other on the other side. Jude, I think everybody's entitled to honor their dead, and so on. Like many of the people who joined the IRA had impeccable careers. They'd never stole as much as a cigarette or anything else. They were politically motivated because of the injustices of society. So I think both communities are entitled to honor their dead, not as I think it was Conor Murphy said, this thing, he says, has gone on for 13 years, and they could hardly even get the local newspaper to send a photographer along to it. But this year, it's suddenly a massive thing because I think it's the politics of distraction, somebody said, has come in, and it's, the DUP are looking around to find someone to attack Sinn Féin, and this is the new one. Now, Jude, I'm not saying the IRA were perfect. I'm not saying that maybe the IRA should be commemorated for some of the actions they've done. I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm having a go at the hypocrisy that it's all right for one, but not for the other.
I wonder if put yourself in the shoes of an ex-UDR man like Jeffrey Donaldson. And you might face the question then. It was these people, the Catholics / Nationalists / Republicans / IRA, that began this warfare, that resorted to violent means. There was an upsurge to create public mayhem, and therefore what else could the authorities do, the security forces do, but try to quell that? And in that case, you wouldn't see the two as equal. Is that not a convincing, for the average unionist, is that not a convincing sort of argument, or is it asking too much?
Yeah, Jude, for the average unionist, for that. But if you want to check it back, because we discussed this last week, the first people killed in the Troubles in Northern Ireland started about 1966, and it was the UVF, including what I call young Ward, and the woman whose name I think was Gould. And then there was 3 or 4, they were all Catholics, sectarian killings. So that set that. Then along came the civil rights. Your John Humes and your Eamon McCanns and your Eddie McAteers took the streets of Derry, and totally peaceful, not a sign of a placard. Hardly there were certainly no guns. They went to the street and they were battered off it, and So see, this sort of thing. It's sort of when I look at it, I sort of say this is a manufactured thing. I am not saying the victims having a right to feel hurt by what the IRA done. That I don't argue with at all. But it strikes me as in a society where there's conflict, you cannot say, "Oh, I know God's on our side, but not on your side." And by the way, the other one, and I'm going to do the old cliche: one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist, and that's been across the globe since time immemorial.
I suppose in a way we might need to see it in terms of history and the institution of the state, and even before the North was created as a separate political entity. The fact that these were what would you call them? Visitors to our shores who came and stayed. Yeah. And therefore there was always that siege mentality, that sense of unsteadiness. So when you saw civil rights marches and so on, the first thought would be this is on the way to squeezing us out or attacking us. Even though, as you say, there wasn't any guns involved, there wasn't even, all there was placards, that there was a kind of an instinctive reaction. This is going to swell into something that's going to try to dislodge us from our position, destroy our state. Would you credit unionists with that, or would you see them as being sort of more brutal than that and say, crappies lie down, essentially?
Jude, if you work on the premise that the REC killed about 6 people in the first sort of month of the civil rights thing, that's 6 Catholics died. That's the message that was sending out to the Catholic community. Get back in your box. Don't you think you can take on the state? Don't you even try it? Jude, this sort of thing that Nolan and other people are out there trying to sort of suggest that, the IRA came out of nowhere, that there was no reason for it, that they had all sorts of alternatives and so on. Jude, for many people, there was very little. Like even Martin McGuinness, I remember him very clearly saying he only joined the IRA after two of his friends were killed by the British Army. And he claimed, and you can argue all day, and your book might have argued as well. Remember, he said he didn't go looking for the war came to him. It came to his town.
Yeah. I think that's the way a lot of people saw it, certainly people who were Republicans. And the war did come to them. I mean, it's on record that we could see the attacks that were made on the marchers. Although people like Micheål,
the RUC attacked the bauxite. Like that's one of the so-called defenders, the law and order people, attacked the community. That's a fact. The Cameron report backs that up totally.
What about for example, John Hume didn't go to Bloody Sunday, didn't go to the march that day, because he thought there was a danger that this would provoke these parachute regiments. Eamon McCann deliberately helped for the Buntalt March, the Belfast to Derry March that ended in Buntalt and being attacked by the B Specials and by loyalists. Was there any degree of deliberately kicking the hornet's nest among nationalists and civil rights people?
I think there was, and I think, and the strategy was one. Like what was happening underneath, they wanted to bring out to the surface. The Catholics couldn't get jobs, couldn't get houses. There was discrimination, there was prejudice, there was bias, and all the rest of it. But it was done so. Like Jude, there was a group of, I think, they were known as what do you call it? It escapes me in Derry. They're sort of like the silent men. They ensured no industrial and development took place in Derry. That it all went east of the ban. I can't remember. There was a name for them. It's just totally escapes me. I have an insane moment here.
But anyway,
it wasn't the committee, no. But anyway, like they were known locally. And by the way, Jude, now there was a friend of mine. His father was a professional man in Derry, and this was on the West Bank, and he couldn't buy a house in a certain area on the West Bank in Derry. So he got a friend of his who was another professional man, but he was an English man. He went up and he bought it. And the minute he bought it, he handed the keys to your man and he paid him. So, Jude, that's the sort of thing. But
that's a story that's often repeated.
It was all under the counter, And remember that program, Once Upon a Time in Northern Ireland. Jerry Glover, who was the mayor at the time, somebody asked him, "Do you believe in democracy?" He says, "No, I believe that he who pays the piper should play the tune." This is what was going on, and this sort of sugar-coated version that we're getting these days, that the IRA came out of nowhere, and it's all their fault and all the rest. That gets up my nose big time.
Yeah. What do you think is well? Just this last question, Pat. What do you think of this as a Sinn Féin tactic? I've said, Eamon McCann and people like that, kicked the hornet's nest by having the march through from Belfast to Derry. They knew they were going to be attacked. Would there be anything deliberate in what Sinn Féin have done in picking John Finucane and having him go to honour these men who died, these IRA men who died? Would that be deliberate? Because they must be aware of that that's going to create reverberations and consequences.
I can't answer that question, but let me make a quick observation. John Finucane's father was shot dead by loyalists.
Yes,
he knows
exactly
what it's like to be a victim. So like
was that why he was chosen,
sort of,
maybe?
Maybe, exactly. He knows what it's like to be a victim. So it should. Another other thing, Jude. See right now, all the court cases and the findings of collusion. It took 50 years, and the reason it took 50 years, or at least 40 for most of these things, is because the lid was kept on it by the state. So their role in the north would be sort of kept the lid on and all. It's all coming out now when it's too late. The soldiers are either got Alzheimer's or dead, or nobody's wanting to go after them. The state was up to its eyeballs, and what even that Once Upon a Time in Northern Ireland, which was, by the way, is an absolutely superb program. One of the soldiers, Squatty, admitted they were on the side of the loyalists because the loyalists loved them. You know.
I wonder. There's another question I was going to ask you. Maybe we'll move on. It's a hard one. Incidentally, just as that, I knew this was something in the back of my mind. Brendan O'Leary, that name mean anything to you?
Yeah.
The American, well, he's from the South, but he's been living in the States, Pennsylvania for ages, the university there. And he's having, I think, a Zoom conference, so to speak, with Ireland's future next Monday. Where he asks a whole lot of questions. Do you think people like that movement of people, academics like him and the guy from Derry, I've forgotten what his name is, who teaches in Queen's, and
Colin Harvey.
Colin Harvey. Yeah. Do you think they're important in terms of achieving moving towards a border poll?
Yeah, they're putting an academic framework and a lot of and there's without question. Jude, by the way, here's a question for you. It's a new one on me. Losers consent. Do you understand? I'd never heard of that, losers consent, until Brendan O'Leary said it on the View the other night. And in fact, I read a wee bit about it, and Jude, maybe I've got this wrong, but I have serious reservations about this losers consent concept. In the sense, is this going to be another unionist veto? Can the unions say, losers consent? Oh, wait a minute. If we lose this border poll, we have to give our consent in the future. But I mean, is that my understanding, or am I being?
I think that's you got it exactly. It's a phrase I'd never heard before either. Although I can see what it means, and it is something that I think everybody is concerned about, and maybe, well, perhaps loyalists, but I think there's a lot of nationalists would be concerned about it, and a lot of nationalists who wouldn't vote for a border poll or vote yes in a border poll because they would see, we'd have this terribly dissatisfied rump who might resort to violence. Therefore, we're better just stay the way we are. Life's not too bad. But is that not just being realistic, Pat?
I don't know. When I looked up, apparently it's an academic concept about, and
well, it's not academic. It's academic. Maybe it came from academia, but
the phrase is an academic one. But the reality is it's not academic. It's far from it. But here's the thing. Well, if in the event that a majority vote for a border poll, does losers consent mean that loyalists and unions get to choose what they agree to and what they don't agree to, and so on? Right, here's the reason I asked it, and this is not meant, but when the North was set up, there was a substantial rump of Catholic nationalists who were sort of corralled into the Northern state. There was no such thing as loser consent there. They were just simply told, as from tomorrow morning, you're under British rule on a part of the island of Ireland, and your rights have just gone. And the proof of the pudding is 50 years of discrimination and bigotry and one-party rule. So why are the rules being changed now for some reason that by the way, I'm totally in favor of equality. I've been putting this on the record because I might be coming across this hard line. I am not asking for any unionists to get anything 1 cent less than I'm getting. I believe totally in equality, but I don't want a police force that's 93% Catholic. I don't want a police force or a militia that's 90 or 100% Catholic and nationalist. I want everybody to have a fair deal in a new Ireland. That's all I believe in. And I think these sort of concepts of losers consent, I'm sort of concerned about where exactly that takes us.
Well, I think you're right to be concerned. To be quite honest, I'm as you say, I'm playing devil's advocate a wee bit here. I think losers consent equals anti-democratic. If you start talking about, oh, how did the losers feel? Did they agree to it? Then you're saying, that a majority voting and a majority vote, that doesn't matter. But you must concentrate on, well, yes, it does matter, but you've got to get the losers' consent as well. I mean, I can see the sort of idea behind it, that you want to get everybody on board, and you'd like to think that a new Ireland would involve everybody, ideally, who would want to make it worthwhile and effective and so on. But the idea of saying losers' consent suggests that you must get their consent. They have to give you their consent. There's no question of that. There's only one consent given, and that is when people vote and they look at the score and they say it's either X or Y. There was a bar poll that succeeded in creating a new Ireland or not.
Totally. Ian Paisley was on about super majorities. He was on about cross-party majorities or cross-community majority, and he was on about weighted majorities, including apparently that part of the unionist community that doesn't vote. He says that has to be factored in. Now, Jude, if I don't vote to maintain the union, I think that means I'm not in favour of the union. But Ian Paisley looks at the other way, seeing that most of those people who don't vote are unionists. They have to a weighted majority and all. Going, wait a minute, I think somebody asked a question: where's democracy gone on this? Look, Jude, as far as I'm concerned, any election I've ever, even from my days as a student for the student presidency, the person who got 50% plus one was elected. Everywhere that I've ever seen, it's true in local government, north and south. It's true for the Dáil. It's true for the presidency. It's true for everything. Why are we talking now about? If you're talking about a cross-community majority and stuff, that's another unionist veto. So you just sort of go, how many vetoes are they going to get?
Yeah. By the way, do you think this is one of the questions that was linked to this Zoom thing that Brendan O'Leary is going to be doing on Monday? One of the questions linked to it was, does the current Irish government really want a united Ireland? Yes or no, Pat?
Jude, right now, I would say no.
Oh,
Jude, I mean,
totally with you.
Reverting to Micheål Martin, Jude, Micheål Martin, he comes out with these pious platitudes that are really starting to get up my nose massively. We've got to sort of be all this about legacy and so on. Jude, that's an excuse. We don't want to upset the unionists. We want to sort of work with them and all this sort of stuff. The aspirations of the nationalist community are totally subservient on each and every occasion, according to Micheål Martin, to unionist concerns. I think that's about time that the Irish government sort of says, look, wait a minute, things are changing on the ground here big time. People have a right to their aspirations. Jude, I don't know. I think we need a serious look at where all this is going. To answer your question, I think the Dublin government are more concerned with managing Northern Ireland than actually promoting anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, one of the things that was suggested in questions was, and I think you mentioned it as well, should there be a Department of Reunification established in the South? A, do you think that's likely? And B, would it be a good idea if it happened?
I don't think it's likely, but I think it should be. I think it should happen. I really genuinely do.
Yeah. Should we press, say, Pat, should we press for that, or should we press for a citizens' assembly first?
Well, I think they should go for a citizens' assembly first. Definitely. Let everybody, come along, make their suggestions, put them in, get a white paper or whatever they call it these days, with the full thing out, and then distill what along the way. Get your academics, your politicians, your civil servants, and whatever, and distill down and say, right, here's what law and order, economics, transport, health, all the key things. Here's what a new Ireland. Here's the sort of the roadmap or whatever term you want to use. Here's the policy documents. Right now, let's have a debate on it. Unlike Brexit, it's all spelled out and it's done. With proper sort of guidelines. I think that's the way forward.
Just a last question, then leave this. If I'm Mr. Smith or Mrs. Smith or Mrs. Murphy or Mr. Murphy, and I'm sort of goodwill towards the idea of a united Ireland, what could I do, big or small, that would encourage the holding of a border poll and hopefully a reunited Ireland? Is there anything I can do, or must I stand back and watch while others make decisions?
Yeah. Well, Jude, I think democracy says it's a majority, but it doesn't mean that the minority has no rights. But look at right. Northern Ireland was set up in a way that was totally artificial on a sectarian headcount. Those who set it up thought it would last, and like a bit like the Third Reich, it would last for 1,000 years. It lasted less than a century. So here we have now, clearly, let's repeat it one more time. It's a mantra, but let's repeat it. 4 of the 6 counties have a majority. Belfast is now a nationalist, basically a nationalist city. The Assembly's got more nationalist, more non-unionists, non-unionists, right, and so on. Sinn Féin's Micheål O'Neill is wonder where that one came out as First Minister designate. The local government elections, Sinn Féin way out in front. How many indicators do you want or need to say, look, we should be having a serious look where all this is going?
But Pat, you didn't answer my question. My question was, what could Mr. Murphy or Mrs. Murphy or Ms. Murphy do, big or small, that would encourage a reunited Ireland at the moment? Or is their job just to sit back and say, yes, good on you, or cheer or punch the air?
To answer your question, I really don't know. But I think maybe the first thing, maybe Mr. and Mrs. Murphy could start working towards or demanding a citizens' assembly and sort of saying,
how would you do that?
Things are changing here.
Yeah, but you see, the Mr. Murphy or Mrs. Murphy wouldn't know how to do that, and neither would I. What do you do? I think what I'm getting at is this, Pat. I think there's too much general talk about supporting, being in favour of, being right behind people who are working for your reunited Ireland, and not enough indication of small ways or big ways in which people who are not involved can put their shoulder to the same wheel. For example, I think if you had a petition right throughout Ireland of names of people who wanted a citizens' assembly, or even if keep the North out of it, you want to just have it in your freed part of the island. A list of people who would put their names to the we want a citizens' assembly. Would that not be a good thing? Would that be likely to succeed?
The great and the good used to write letters to. I remember getting a petition in the Journal and I think the Irish News for I can't remember, the civic nationalism. Remember all the sort of movers and shakers in the Catholic community. I think if they organised in every county a sort of some sort of petition and sort of said, right, we want now real negotiations and discussions about the future of this country. It's happening anyway. It's just that you asked the question as the Irish government, and I think under Micheål Martin and Leo Varadkar, no. But it's coming from the grassroots up, not the top down.
I'm just thinking that I agree with you that the Micheål Martin and Leo are dragging their heels. But the one thing that will persuade people is if they feel that they're acting contrary to the will of the people. I think if a petition was mounted, at least that'd be a start. I'm getting impatient with general sort of feeling, and I know there's a tidal change, and I know there's tectonic plates shifting and so on. But a lot of people want to say, I want to do my bit as well. Bobby Sands, there's a big Bobby Sands mural up on the Falls Road, and he says something to the effect that everyone, no matter who, can do something towards achieving the aims of republicanism. Words to that effect. I couldn't agree more. Yeah. And I think that the way we run democracy, it's too detached. It's too detached. We allow parties to go on and do all the work. It'd be nicer to involve the public, I think. Okay, let's leave it. Sorry, we've gone on too long there. Let's talk about something really, really cheerful like Rory McIlroy. That's a good game of golf. Oh, yes, you'll be out for golf later on today, will you, Pat?
No, Jude, never got. I went out several times. I worked on a place, the Derry Journal, where the people who owned it were superb golfers and very good golf and nice people as well. And all the rest, and they used to invite me out. Jude, I never got it. In fact, I was waiting. Jesus, where's the bar? The 19th hole was the one I was interested in.
Exactly.
But anyway, Rory McIlroy, Jude, it's a really great one. Rory McIlroy was apparently offered 400,000 by the Live Golf Tour,
400 what?
to join up.
400 million, you mean?
400 million, yeah. Um, uh, Tiger Woods was offered double that to join, and both of them turned it down. And they were given undertakings by the PGA that they would fight to the death to maintain the old ways of and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Now, Jude, apparently McIlroy and all the rest of them didn't know until Tuesday morning that behind the scenes, PGA and what had reached an agreement where they're going to emerge in some way, and there's some new organisations going to be formed.
Yeah.
Now, Rory McIlroy did seem bemused when he said, well, basically, he sort of said, if I'd have known this one, I could have taken 400 million and so on. But Jude, let's get this on it. Jamal Khashoggi was a journalist, and he was getting married, and he went into the Saudi Arabian embassy in Istanbul in February 2021. I remember very well because I remember the story very well. He didn't come out again. Apparently, while he was possibly still alive, they started cutting him up, and Erdogan, the Turkish president, said they had video of guys walking out with bags, and now they figure out that was his remains. It was cut up into small pieces, and the only people who could have organised that or sanctioned that was the rulers of Saudi Arabia. Right?
Are they behind this Live organization? Are they behind this Live organization that has come together with the PGA?
Yeah, they're behind this Live organization. Yeah, it's the Royal Fund of Saudi Arabia. I can't remember what it's called, or the Public Fund. Right. Then, in Saudi Arabia, how the Saudi royal family keep control is absolute hardline subjugation and oppression of the people. You can't speak out about it. Quite recently, they executed a guy and they beheaded him. But then, not only that, they crucified him after they put his body up on public displays, and that's done deliberately to frighten the shit out of anybody. It's done that. Now, these are the same people now who are sport washing that sort of image by taking over golf. They've taken over Newcastle United. They're in there somewhere in Manchester City. They've got Paris Saint-Germain, and so on, so on, so on. I could keep going. Jude, but here's the thing. The morals, there seems to be no morals here at all, or no principles, no integrity. The money speaks.
Well, should we stop playing golf then, or watching golf, or watching Man City or Newcastle?
Well, I certainly will. I really genuinely will. I am not.
But you not watch the Champions League final.
Yeah, but Jude, I'll watch the Champions League final.
It's on tomorrow, incidentally.
Yeah, because there's all sorts of things I can't. But golfers could make individual choices. Clubs are usually owned by multinationals and various things. But a golfer, Rory McIlroy, all these other guys can make decisions. Like what do you call it? I can't remember the guy from Northern Ireland who got 40 million or something to join. He was one of the lesser ones, but still 40 million sets him up for life. But just the moral question is the one that gets me.
Well, Laura, I agree with you, and you do feel sort of ashamed when you hear those terrible things that these people do. And there is a whole belief that when you move to states running a football team, it's this thing from multi-millionaires or billionaires running it, that you feel a sort of a line has been crossed. I frankly am not 100% sure about that. I think I'm interested in. I'll watch that thing tomorrow, even though I have, of course, what you've said about the team who owns them. They're probably ghastly people, but the place has been wonderful football. If you want to watch golf from now on, you're going to have to suck it up and accept the fact that Live money is going into it. I think we'd be wrong to believe it would be really good otherwise. I mean, this is the way the world's run. Many of the things that we have are owned by somebody who is probably of dubious morals.
But Jude, soccer is different. There are so many clubs that are not owned by this group. There are so many things that are going on that are Real Madrid's not owned by Saudis. Manchester United's not owned by Saudis. Well, not yet. Real Sociedad. You can, Inter Milan.
Yeah, but they're owned by big billionaires.
Owned by the Saudis.
They're owned by big billionaires. They're owned by big billionaires.
But there's some accountability. But hold on, there's some accountability for them. There's no accountability for golf. The Saudis
what accountability would you have for a billionaire, Pat? How could you hold a billionaire to account?
Yeah, well, there have been a number of attempts to take over Premier League clubs, and they were considered not fit people. So,
Yeah. I think myself, actually, that if the government is serious, then the government should outlaw this, simply outlaw it. It's not a question of will the soccer code or the league or whatever make decisions. Should the government say, no, this isn't going to happen. If they really believe that this is a bad thing and immoral, they shouldn't be leaving it up to the individual to try to solve it. Anyway, we've less than a minute left, Pat. Went so fast.
Yeah.
So fast. I can't believe it. Well, there's so many things we haven't explained to people yet, but they'll just have to hang on next Monday. Okay, Pat. Thanks very much. Look after yourself. Okay. Stay out of the sun.
Good luck.
Sun cream.
Exactly. Good luck.